Hello and welcome to the Ray Show podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Ray, and we are coming to you from beautiful downtown Athens, Georgia. It's a lovely late summer evening, and tonight on the podcast, we have the amazing Dani Filth from the mighty Cradle of Filth on the show. So we talk all things Cradle with Dani, and he's super cool and super fun to talk to. So we'll have that coming up for you in just a few. Also, check out their new record, Existence is Futile. It is amazing. It's been out close to a year now, and it just keeps gaining legs with me, man. One of those just absolute classics. So make sure to check that one out. I also want to announce that we will have our first live podcast taping at Cine Athens on October 5th. Full details will be announced on our socials and on our website, ratiopodcast.com, coming up soon. So keep an eye peeled for that. It'll have information on how to attend and then how to watch from the comfort of your couch, with your own party favors. So, either way, we'll have that information coming for you here very soon. Without further ado, I'd want to welcome Mr. Dani Filth. All right, everybody. I've been waiting for this one since we got started. I mean, thank God, thank Satan, whoever the hell you want to thank. We have the amazing Dani Filth on the podcast this evening. How you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Greetings.
Greetings. Well, it's good to have you here. And, just to get right off the bat, you guys are touring behind the excellent Existence is Futile, picking back up with the Mexico Metal Fest, and then, going till early December. How is the atmosphere at these shows opposed to last year when you were just starting to tour on Existence?
Well, we did come back to America.
Yes.
In June. Well, you mean like with the resurgence of people coming back to shows following COVID?
I'm kind of talking more about May, like from May on, because I know you guys toured here in May and June. The feeling of shows now with people being a little more acclimated to what this pandemic entails as far as keeping people safe. How do you feel a difference now in getting ready to head back?
I guess so. I felt it more at the beginning. We toured America very fortunately at the tail end of the COVID epidemic last year. When was it? Like roughly, literally around the same time. September to around October time, and more noticeable then. Less people, but people, were desperate. You could feel it, desperate to get back to shows. I don't know if that's the case now. I think people are very happy getting back to shows now, but there's just so many of them because obviously the gates have opened and everybody's back out on the road. So that, everybody's spoiled for choice. And I'll tell you what, we've had a really great summer of festivals, especially here in Europe. Not just ones we play, but, just general, the vibe that's coming from people that I know that visited them. It's big and brash and back. And, everybody, I think is very grateful for that.
Yeah. I see. I've been to big festivals and I've been to club shows. I just see a real excitement back now and a sense of people are not going to take this for fucking granted again. So, but you're getting started with Mexico Metal Fest. So many great bands on that bill. You guys, Mayhem, to name a few, and then you have the mighty Wasp. So how do you...
I really wanted to stay. I was like, as soon as I heard the Wasp were playing.
Yes, yeah.
Which, they literally stick out like a sore thumb, really, because the rest is sort of a thrash death, black metal festival, and then you have Wasp. And I really want to see Wasp. Unfortunately, they're playing the day that we're flying out.
Yeah. And that's, I wanted to ask you, how do you like playing festivals at this point in the game? And do you still get out and check out any of the bands?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've done some great festivals. We just did a few with Merciful Fate. Obviously had to go and check out King Diamond and his merry crew. Paradise Lost. I don't know. It's just when we can catch people, we can catch people. But if you see a festival in advance and you just see all these bands go, oh my God, I've got to see that. But it always coincides with something you've got to do like I don't know, interviews or something, press, or you're getting ready for stage, or it's completely the wrong day, which
Right.
is usually the case. But all the good bands you want to see next
Yes.
day.
Well, I tell you, this is a Cradle of Filth interview, but you said you played with the mighty Merciful Fate. I saw them out in Vegas. How amazing was it to see that band back together and just flying on all cylinders?
Yeah, it was great, and it was great seeing them play a lot of stuff from Don't Break the Oath, which is one of my favorite, like in my top 10 records of all time.
Oh, me
Everybody
too.
bangs on about Melissa, like obviously after Metallica covered them laboriously, but I love that record.
Oh,
I
I do
just think
too.
it's timeless, and it was great to hear tracks being played from it.
You're right. You're so right about Melissa. I love it. But there's just this evil feel about "Don't Break the Oath" that just has stayed with me since like my 10-year-old ears heard it, and it still holds up. So powerful, it still is like
It really has a unique sound.
Um, but now let's get back to Cradle of Filth here. Existence is Futile is one of those records whose blackened hooves just keep blazing along. I mean, you're coming up on this has been released, a year, and I think you're making the best records of your career. What do you think has led to this mighty run Cradle is on, especially these last fucking 3 records that are just stompers, every track on it?
Well, we parted ways with a previous guitarist who, at the time, to be perfectly honest, was kind of hogging both guitar slots. He wasn't very happy with having anybody to write with. Ooh.
Right.
And so it became a little difficult proceeding. And then the end sort of came when he just decided he didn't want to tour, or at least to leave it for a few years. And at which point we were co-headlining in Europe with Behemoth, and I just took the tour anyway. Had to find 2 guitarists. Our other guitarist we'd used, but he was only like a live guy.
Right.
He suddenly had a real problem with his back and neck, and had to have like spinal surgery. I'm not laughing about that, obviously, but the fact of it is, last minute, I had to find 2 new guitarists.
Jesus Christ.
And the tour was that great, and everybody got on that well, and it felt like this renewed force that, as soon as we came back from tour, it was like, well, this is just going to have to stay like this because this is great. And, I think that just gave us a little resurgence.
Well, yeah, there's this. I love the feel of this record. It has that wonderful dramatic air in the songs. Like I'm especially talking about Necromantic Fantasies and Discourse Between a Man and His Soul. What were you listening to when these songs were being written? What were influencing these things? Because I'm always amazed that you keep reinventing, Cradle album to fucking album.
Oh, God, I've got no idea what we were listening to at the time. It was. We were on tour that year. I think that was a big inspiration for it. 2019 was a really busy year for us. We literally did the whole world, and we got to see some really cool shit as well. And the title and everything like that, the music, it was all inspired by this very busy year. And then we were very fortunate in the fact, well, not fortunate in the fact that COVID came along, but we were very fortunate in the fact that we weren't going out on tour when suddenly, the whole world shut down.
Right.
And that our drummer, who's based in the Czech Republic, Central Europe, had already come over to England and recorded his drums. So had he not have done that, we would have been waiting like 4 or 5 months, to get access to him because the borders were shut.
Right.
So, we had all the guide tracks and everything like that. And I just literally went in the studio, and whoever else was based in England at the time. And we just took our time with it. We were only working like 5-6 hours a day. That's all you could really do.
Right.
Because of kind of curfews and what have you. But I think that's what lent the album its particular feel. It was a very strange period because, we were at a studio. It was just literally us 2 working there. Everywhere else was desolate, out in the middle of the countryside. It literally felt like a zombie apocalypse.
Right. My gosh. Well, let's go back a little bit. What was it like for you growing up in Hertford? Was it a
Well, I
metal?
didn't actually. I was born there, but I
You were
grew
born
up
there.
in Suffolk.
You
Literally lived in the same part of England the entirety of my life.
in
Which
Suffolk,
sounds
right?
a bit, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
county, and it may sound a little dull, but honestly, when you spend 6 months a year all over the world, you want a little bit of,
Yeah.
uh, you know, something provincial and not overly busy to come back to.
Well, what was it like growing up there? Was there a metal friendly area at your school with your friends? I mean, was that something that was frowned upon back then? You know, when we were
But
coming up.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in villages, like if you imagine like quintessential English village with thatched cottages and, nestled in the English countryside, stone churches. That's where I grew up. I mean, that's where I live now. And yeah, it was burgeoning. There was like a couple of people at best. And then, maybe a few more as you got into high school. And then it kind of became popular again because, you had the likes of Metallica and Guns N' Roses. Um, yeah, I mean, it was small but cool. And then my local town was where the gigs happened. They had a massive grindcore scene there, literally the hub of grindcore at one
Right.
point. Um, and yeah, it was strange. It was because we had a local DJ that was very famous who suddenly championed the hardcore scenes. He had like Extreme Noise Terror and Napalm Death playing there, and Carcass and Bolt Thur. Really pretty cool.
Yeah, you talking about John Peel?
Yeah, I'm actually talking about John Peel. Yes,
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
he
It's
literally he used to go to the gigs with his family. Like he had two young children, and his wife, and he used to drag them along to these extreme, hardcore punk gigs, like Extreme Noise Terror playing, and yeah, would be playing all this weird stuff on the radio, like Mongolian throat music and stuff like
yes.
the Pogues and the Smiths, and then suddenly just chucking a Napalm Death song. It was quite splendid, really.
Yeah, I loved his listening habits. He truly had no boundaries.
Yeah,
Um,
he didn't live very far away from here at all. I mean, literally about 10 miles um, away from where I live now. And you
oh,
see him around, used to see him around all the time, just shopping.
well, did you ever have
Yeah.
any? Did you ever talk to him? Did you ever have any interactions with him?
Yeah, briefly, yeah. And apparently, according to his autobiography, which I find very weird because he didn't particularly like metal. I don't
Right.
think he really played metal at all. But according to his autobiography, he really liked the Cradle of Filth t-shirts. Like he had the Jesus shirt and
Yeah.
everything. I don't know, it really tickled him. I don't know why.
Well, that's great. Well, it's got to be. He was an artistic guy. And getting to that, I've read that. I had that shirt when I was, whenever in my late 20s. And how do you feel about that shirt now? I look at it as this. If just real quick, I look at it as a really, beautiful artistic statement between,
It
you
is,
and
but
I.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, we're not getting younger, as
Yeah.
it sounds, as you said, in the late 20s. And the older you get, I mean, my girlfriend is like I'm turning 50 next year,
Right
and
on.
my girlfriend's turning 30 next year, and so she's got a completely different outlook on things. And she asked for one of the shirts. We just reprinted them. She wanted it in like extra large, so it just would hang like a dress.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got up one morning and we went to a cafe, very posh cafe actually, in near where she lives. And it was only when I got in there I suddenly realised, fuck, she's wearing that dress. Why didn't I even? And then I suddenly felt really self-conscious of my own shirt, as everybody was eating their tea, having their tea and crumpets, and there was Jesus as a cunt emblazoned across the back of her dress.
Right, right. Well, I find that shirt. I don't even think that's the most offensive shirt you guys have released. That the "Desire Me Like Satan" shirt. If I wear that out, even to my local bar, I get looks. So I guess I read something where you were saying it's own these things, but wear them in the house on Sunday when you're like kicking around. I mean, it's just
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in festivals, stuff like that. Yeah, I agree with it. But I must admit, I know it sounds unbelievable. I would be embarrassed wearing it in front of someone's children.
right, right. Well, I love it. I still think, I wear mine in the house, but that's my little rebellion here at 48. So, well, you mentioned, children, without prying into any personal details. How has having a child throughout these very successful years affected the approach with which you attack your career?
Well, I think it easily could have got. Well, I say easily could have got out of hand. It definitely did that in absolute spades. At one point, it was around like when the band was getting pretty big, around the sort of 98, 1999 era, and that my daughter was born in late 19. No, early 99. I almost forgot then. 1999, and. Yeah, I think it just kept me grounded. Yeah, I didn't go off, I went off the rails. We were going off the rails. We were a heavy metal band. We were getting recognized. We were touring everywhere and, magazine covers and the whatnot. And we were really getting into our art at the same time. But it gave us real cool opportunities, like recording, albums for 4 months at a time at a residential studio, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, we were party animals. But having a daughter and having a certain responsibility, definitely kept me grounded, and I probably saved my life.
Right,
probably saved
right.
quite a few people's lives having that sort of anchor.
Well, you got to enjoy. It's got to be fun now. When she's older, to be able to
and she's
share.
moved out, yes.
To be able to share Cradle with her, and be able to talk about all these things and stuff that maybe.
Well, she's believe it or not, I mean, she obviously comes to our gigs and what have you, but she's a big Bring Me the Horizon fan.
Right.
And so when I did that song with them, I took her along. She's in the video, and
yes, that's
one
so
good
great.
thing about being, where we are now is that I can ask Ollie and say, well, he's actually promised her lifelong tickets, but I can say, oh my God, look, wedding's happening next week. Can you get her, on the guest list? And one small perk, I guess.
Right. And I look at that, those cats grew up listening to you guys. So, I mean, being able to repay the favor to you guys, man, that's amazing, just for all the art you've given them and the inspiration. Just a couple more here with you. But okay, thanks Satan, man. October is finally almost upon us, and Halloween's right around the corner. What are some movies or records you will be enjoying this holiday season?
Oh wow, that's totally caught me out. Totally off guard. Even if you just said what's your 5 favorite movies or what's your 5 favorite records, I would still be going, duh.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that sort of thing. Religiously, although Halloween's always kind of not ruined for me, but it's never the Halloween I've always wanted. Ironically, I actually had the best Halloween about 6 years ago in Atlanta. My girlfriend at the time had friends in Atlanta. We just had holiday in LA. And we went there, and it was a proper, thoroughbred, pure American Halloween with a totally decorated house and costume party and, dunking for apples and drinking too much beer. And it was amazing. Proper Halloween.
Right.
But normally, we're always doing something because that's kind of what's expected of a band like ours at Halloween.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always play either Danzig, Misfits, or Sam Hain.
Oh yeah.
King Diamond, Merciful Fate, basically anything with the word Halloween in. And I listen to horror soundtracks most of the year, so that really doesn't make much difference if I put any of those on.
Well, kind of talking about that, we're around the same age. I think you're like 4 months older than me. So a lot of guys our age tend to have some of the same gateway albums that are into metal. What were some of yours? I mean, for example, like your first Maiden album, your first Sabbath album. What were some of the ones, because like, for instance, my first, just chronologically, the first Priest album I bought with my own money was Turbo. And that's a very polarizing album to some. But I always find it interesting to hear.
It's very 80s.
Yeah, very 80s. So what were some of the gateway albums that really brought you into being into, making music yourself?
Well, I got into it about when I was just turned 13, I think, maybe on the cusp of 12. My friend just got me totally into it. I got hooked. I was already into horror movies, and it just seemed like a natural progression. And I just like dark music. Before that, it was like dark pop music.
Right, right.
So yeah, my gateway albums were actually, funny enough. Don't Break the Oath was one of them.
Yes.
Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. Well, actually, Live After Death than anything before it, really. Like Early Destruction. I got into thrash very quickly from that. I was really into Venom and Slayer. I think the thing was, my friend gave me a compilation. He'd been into it a lot longer, maybe a couple of years, and he gave me a compilation tape, and it was just a real mixed bag. It had everything from the Plasmatics, believe it or not, through to Razor and Possessed, but then it had Maiden and Crocus, and yeah, so I kind of just cherry picked the bands I really, really liked. But at that, when you were that young, you just loved everything.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
And especially that time when you think about like 86, like all the records that came out that year.
Oh yeah, there was a great album that came out around that time called Speed Kills.
Oh yeah.
It's like a compilation, but
Yes.
Speed Kills 2.
Yes.
Speed Kills 2, it was incredible. I've just been talking about this with this author, Joel McIver, about that very record, because it opened with like Agent Steel. It had Halloween, Razor, Onslaught, all these great.
Oh God, yeah. Both Razor and Onslaught are so underrated. My God, I mean,
absolutely.
So
yeah, that's how I got into that, and then it progressed into, as metal got more underground, I really got into, from grindcore to death metal to, like doom stuff and symphonic. Well, when I say symphonic metal, I'm really not a massive fan of traditional heavy metal.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems like you covered all the bad guys there.
Literally, I had to stop myself talking because I'll be here for another 10 hours now talking about it.
I hear you.
I suddenly realized we're on a radio show.
Well, let me ask you, what's next for Cradle? I know you guys are going to go on tour. How much longer do you see the cycle for Existence is Futile going on?
Well, possibly for another year. We're actually currently writing toward another record, but it's only in its formative stages. We've got loads of material. It's just we want to do something really perfect. And it's just a kind of managing our time, really, because we've got so many things happening and, good management that's plotting ahead. So Summer Festival's kind of booked for next year.
Nice.
I was in the studio today just putting off the finishing touches to a couple of new tracks that are accompanying a double live album, which is coming out around April, May next year.
Oh, wow. That will be exciting. Oh, my God.
Yeah, we just thought we'd put like two fresh tracks on it as well, because they kind of, act as like spearheads, I suppose,
Yeah, and it gives the fans also something extra special, man. That sounds awesome to have this a live document of this lineup, and then to have two extra tracks with it, man. But so you guys gonna be touring the States next year?
Absolutely. I think we're looking at, I think tentatively this time next year.
Okay. Well, Dani, I just want to thank you so much. Is there any, what's the best place for our listeners to get in touch with Cradle and find out all things Cradle, social?
Well, there's, Facebook, Instagram, the usual shit.
I want to thank Dani Filth for coming on and talking all things Cradle of Filth with us this evening. Wasn't he fucking cool? Go out and listen to Cradle of Filth and make sure you catch him on their next run, wherever you may be located. That's our show for this evening. Stay switched on, and we'll talk to you soon.